March 9th. It's the Policy Advisory Committee. We'll start with attendance, go around the room, say who's here. Andrew, we'll start with you.
Andrew Hennies, attorney for the committee.
Rob Mezzanotte, assistant superintendent.
Jennifer Lima, school committee member.
Catherine Zimmerman, parent representative.
Jason Diego, parent representative.
Roman, student.
James Chung, student representative.
Mia Thompson, teacher and parent.
Chaz Pazenko, IT supervisor.
Okay, awesome. Does not look like anybody's here for citizens' comments. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting, which was February 12th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, awesome. So at the last meeting, we had our first look at the cell phone and the AI policy. And we had some discussions, and Rob, I'm
Mhm.
not sure if you had made, any, edits after our meeting. You did?
Yeah, I
Okay, do
did.
you wanna walk
Sure.
us through what you did?
Yeah, so, I made the edits like right after we met because I wanted them fresh in my mind, and now it's been a while
You don't
since we
remember
met,
what you
so.
did? Okay.
So I have to like kinda, go back a little bit, but I know that I based them on the comments that had been there, and, they were, I think, pretty straightforward, relatively speaking. I know that really the areas that I edited are highlighted in yellow. So, if everyone has the policy up, the edits that I made, I just highlighted in yellow. So the first one there is just defining the purpose of the policy, which I think was brought up last time, that we wanted to make sure we explicitly stated that the purpose was to comply with the law. So that's that. The next piece, if you go down under policy statement, we talked about sort of specifying the busing situation that we discussed, which is that we weren't going to include buses as part of the area of school grounds, so I tried to just specify that, mentioning while on school grounds, excluding busing during school hours. The one under that, we talked about, we had a discussion, I remember, about the elementary and middle school language versus the high school language. It was a little bit different before. The previous language was a little more strict at the elementary middle level, having to do with them not being brought to the school at all. We had some discussion around that. I think the group kind of landed on the language of the elementary middle, sort of mirroring the high school, which made me think that I'm not sure we need separate sections for elementary middle versus high school. That was something that I know the members of the team that helped draft this, they wanted that. They wanted a separate, they just wanted a separate section there. But if we're gonna put the language the way it is, I don't know if that's necessary anymore.
Yeah, because it's the exact same now.
Yeah.
Right, initially there had been something different about the elementary school.
It was a little stricter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically us saying like, at the elementary, middle school, we were putting language into like, really not have devices brought to school. Whereas high school, we phrased it a little looser with it being like, have the device out of sight. Again, that was just that was kind of input from the group
Yep.
that wrote it. They wanted a little bit of a progression, if you will, with language going from the elementary, middle up to the high school. So again, we can revisit that or not. And that was really all of the all the adjustments we made. Everything else was kept as is. Yeah, everything else was kept as is. I just had I had one clarifying question. This wasn't to be, it was just out of curiosity, because I know that, Erin, you made the comment about parents, guardians with families, and again, I'm fine with changing it to parents, guardians. I just wanted like clarification, because we've been giving direction to like people around kind of like parents / guardians or families being somewhat interchangeable, and I was just wondering if that's not what we want.
Don't we have, isn't it somewhere? Am I losing it?
Hmm?
Like, didn't we write what the consistent message was for that, for parents / guardians or something,
Don't
instead of families?
think so, did we?
I thought they were interchangeable, I like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean, so and again, I'm fine with putting either, I was just curious about that, cause that was a suggested change, I thought that we, you know,
I think like anytime you include guardians, it's a little more inclusive, just because some students might be with adults that are legally responsible for them that they might not consider families, but
yeah,
I'm here for consistency more than like.
sure, no, and I'm,
Yeah, I think we have been using parents / guardians and not families.
I know that's what I've been using,
Yeah.
but that's not at the exclusion of families, that's just what
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
the words we were using, so.
alright, I, that's fine, I'm fine with that, I just wanna make sure, like, am I okay with, cause we've been for like school-based communications going out, we've kind of been sort of saying that they're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, like I don't think we've defined it anywhere, but like I know in all of our policy language, it has been parent / guardian, it has not been family within a policy.
Okay,
Yeah, I think like the newsletter's a little different than
got it, okay,
policy.
alright, I just wanna make sure, so I can, I can
Or
change it.
form, like we had some like conversation about like legal forms and like what it should say.
Yes, that we did,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, legal forms are, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm talking more like just general school communication.
Yeah, like in the
Yeah.
emails that go out,
Yeah.
like from the principal to the families, I think it makes sense in those contexts, I think when they're talking about families, but I think in terms
Okay.
of policies.
Makes sense, alright. So yeah, so I tried to just capture sort of what some of the, I know we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting, I understand like the difficulty around this policy and the challenges it presents, but I also know that it's one of those things that our hands are a little bit tied in terms of having one.
It's sort of like it's just an editing thing. The part about consequences between elementary and middle and high school, they're worded slightly differently, and I don't think in practice it makes that much of a difference, but for like just
Mhm.
consistency, like linguistic consistency, like any student who is seen accessing a PED without permission will be subject to disciplinary consequences pursuant to the handbook. And then the one below says if students are seen using their PED during school hours, do we wanna pick which one we like better and just repeat it, or is there a difference?
Where are we right now?
Oh, under the elementary and
Oh,
middle
yeah, yeah,
school, two
Yeah.
sections.
Yeah, absolutely, like,
I don't care which
So-
one, but.
yeah, so the where that came out of, and it came from the group that we put together to draft this. They felt kind of strongly about having like some language that was for elementary, middle, and then some language that was for high school, because they just wanted to kind of show a progression of expectations.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that like it kind of reads as the same thing now, so I'm not sure that we necessarily need that anymore. But I know that that was something, I left it like this on purpose for the sake of this group, only because the group who I worked with, they did, that was something they wanted, you know, as part of it.
So going back to what I remember from our discussion the last time, right, the policy as it came to us out of that committee had a, like you said, they did not want devices coming to school with elementary students, but I think the feeling here was that A, that's not realistic, and B, that is maybe not the vibe that this committee was feeling, right, like, because I think being able to, you know, students who are going home after school, students who are on the bus, like parents needing to be able to reach their students outside of the school day, but within that, from the time they leave their house to the time they come back, right, that way there's access to it on the, am I making sense, like on the
Yep.
buffer of the school day, right? So with the understanding that it comes to school, it stays in the bag and it doesn't come out.
Exactly, I think what I remember is that we talked about how, you know, the devices certainly can be a distraction. That younger students certainly can, you know, be maybe in some cases, maybe more distractible with the devices than the older students. But we also wanted to kind of like say, all right, reality dictates that students are gonna have these devices. Some families want their students to have these devices on them, as long as they are out of sight, you know what I mean? And not interfering with, you know, classroom work and things of that nature, then we're okay with that, you know? I think that from the standpoint of the educators who were part of the committee, who were and elementary school, they were more like, from a standpoint of our clear expectations, just don't bring them to school, you know what I mean? But that was just the suggestion, I think that's the practice that's stated now at least. I'm not sure it's actually happening, cause I know that kids do bring devices especially the middle school level, but I think the stated, like, message or expectation is, don't have them in school. Does that happen? I'd have to ask the middle school
I don't know if
person
it's
that.
stated for elementary school.
For elementary, yeah, I don't know if it's clear.
Not like at school, at least.
Yeah. I know in middle school,
Yeah.
that's the message they send, is to not have the devices. But I know kids.
On
bring
them or
devices.
visible?
They shouldn't have them in school ever,
Okay,
I know kids bring them,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But the message, at least from the school, is can't have them.
Okay.
Do you think from the conversations that you had with that group and whoever was part of it, do you think that there is that graduation piece, like, do you think that is still something that is important in terms of how we move forward? Like, I know, like, middle school, as a parent of a middle school student who plays sports and does other things, like having his phone to coordinate
Yeah.
rides and stuff is super important,
Yeah.
but I don't have a elementary school student, so I don't know, like, if there's really this push or really a want from staff and people that were part of that meeting to have a graduation. Like, I could see having, like, elementary, middle school, and high school as kind of 3 separate entities.
Mhm.
But I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, if that was really like something that group was really pushing for, or if it's like it's gonna be an area where this policy doesn't address that idea and it was pretty big, or if it was just, that's what they were thinking and it's not, a showstopper for, this policy moving forward.
So in the work that we did, the voices that came through in this really were more from the middle school, high school side of things. Elementary did not have a super, like, big presence in the discussions we had. And the middle school and the high school is like where this was more of a concentrated focus. Middle school, I think where they were coming from is they wanted to, I think they just wanted to set a little bit of a stricter tone at their level. And then kind of, so with the message being like, hey, we're gonna be a little bit more tight here as you're younger, and then as you get older, we'll kind of, there's like a loosening a bit, with what the stated expectations were. And that was kind of what they wanted to show with sort of that separate sections. And then elementary's pretty much just latched on to middle school, is how they did it.
Do we wanna make parents aware, like, as a parent, like, I wouldn't send my elementary school kid to school with a phone, I know people disagree with that,
Mhm.
but some kids might have them. Do we want to, like, sort of open up chain of communication or make people aware that this is a big change? Because previously it was like, don't bring it at all to elementary school, and it was seemed really discouraged. And with this change in wording, I'm wondering if we'll see elementary school students with more devices at school, because the parents were previously like, oh, you're not allowed to have it. So would a differentiation be like, with parent guardian permission, elementary and middle school students may have a phone? Or is that like sort of overstepping beyond the scope of what your working group wanted to do or what this committee wants to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, what I took away from our conversation, anyone can feel free to, to weigh in. What I took away from our conversation last time was that essentially it was, the stated expectation was going to be a device cannot be out and visible during school time, right? That was kind of my takeaway from it, is that, like, we're not gonna go further as a school to we're not gonna be sifting through bags, we're not gonna be, like doing that kind of thing. But just the stated expectation is that devices are not to be seen during the school day. That was kind of my takeaway from it.
And that's, I was looking, because I think the messaging that's been coming out from the middle schools that I've seen is not that they're not allowed on site, is that they're to be turned off and not visible.
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of the messaging that is coming out now, not that they're not to have it, but just, like,
Yeah, I can see that.
I
can
don't
that.
see it, it's not gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
So if I see it, then we're gonna have an issue, right? And so that's kind of, I think,
Yeah, I think it kind of probably shows up a little bit more like in practice at this, like in the school setting. I think middle school just sets a stricter tone, you know what I mean?
But
With
that's
like-
what the middle school is saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. It's not saying you cannot have it, it's saying don't show it.
right.
Okay,
And I think there's a little more of a stricter, like,
Yeah.
hold the line if they do see it.
Yeah.
Versus at the high school, I think it's, you know, it's not as strict.
yeah.
You know how much it thrills me when we have policies that say one thing and then action that is another. But here we are.
Well, I get it, but I think also like.
I just think it devalues our conversation with students, and this is, we have to do this, period. We know how I feel about this, but like, that always, it just is not the way that I would do it, I guess, is the best way I would say it.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah.
I did put an interesting article in, just 2 seconds ago, I forgot to link it earlier, apologies. I connected it to the consequences and intervention piece. It's just an op-ed, but I thought it was interesting because it referenced restorative, like, practices, because I keep thinking about how, if this is enforced, like, how, you know, like, we've been talking a lot about discipline and, like, wanting to make sure that we have, you know, really good restorative practices for discipline, and so I thought that article was interesting. I don't know if it would change anything that we would talk about in the language for consequences, but I do think that that's something that needs to be thinking about. Okay, when you do bring your phone, what are you getting? Are we just suspending kids a lot? Like, are we giving them a lot of attention? Like, what are we doing here, right?
No.
So I thought that is an interesting piece of it,
Mhm.
of like thinking about how to work with the students. I think the article referenced, like, talking to the students about, like, why is the phone out? Like, what are we doing? You know, like, why it's important not to have it out, like those sort of things, instead of just being like, you're out, off to the office, see you
Mhm.
later.
Yep.
So something to think about. But again, I don't know if we need to reflect it in the language. It might just be more of a training/practice thing.
Yep.
Because I was after we left the meeting last time, I was Googling, like, the parallels of this to other things. Like, I was trying to find, like, parallels that we had. But the one differentiator was that most of the parallels of things that we don't want at school are illegal, or illegal for the students. So, like, when you're thinking about, like, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, they're under 18, and so all of those things are consistent, where this is an outlier. Like, this, it's not illegal to have a cell phone, and so I was trying to, like, find it in my head of, like, how, like, I could, like, do it, and this, because I was thinking, okay, like, what if a parent's like, yeah, I don't care, right? Like, at least now you could say, like, oh, well, you know, like, the Rhode Island state law says blah, 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 and I know that this is a law, but, like, I was trying to think of, like, you can't have cigarettes because you're not 18, period. Like, you can't drink alcohol because you're not 21. This is different, so.
So I found, in previous teaching, I've worked at a school where we had restorative practices, especially around cell phones, and I found that it was difficult as a teacher to manage that piece because that deeper thought process of, like, connecting behavior of cell phone to impact for educational experience was difficult for a 13 or 14, 15, 16-year-old, and it ended up being to a point where the way that our school had run it is that if a student, like, I'd have to send them to the office and they would have to surrender their phone for a certain amount of time, and then there would be a meeting between me and the student, and we had a restorative justice counselor that would support, but then it just became like time out of my day as a teacher to go and have those conversations, and it was like the same students, like, over and over and over and over again. So I think that there's some value in the restorative justice or restorative practices piece, but also making sure that there are consequences if it continues on, because if not, it's just like this ongoing thing, and it makes it hard as a teacher to be able to send a student that's not following the instructions and has said it over and over and over again, and there's no teeth or no anything to that, and then it just becomes a problem in the classroom.
Yeah, I can see that.
So all the teeth is on the student handbook for the school that they're in, and it's up to the schools to decide what the consequence would be for having the phones out.
Correct.
Got it.
Where did we land on lunch? Is lunch part of the school day?
Mm-hmm.
The way you guys, it's not part of the defined school
Well,
day,
that's why-
but it's
that's
part
what
of the
I'm
way
asking.
the way you guys have defined it, it's yes.
I think we need to articulate that in here, because it's
Will you
not
do that?
currently. I don't think so.
I
It
think we
says,
did.
under the policy statement, the last sentence, it says during school hours, in any space within the school, including classrooms, hallways, restrooms, cafeteria, gymnasium, auditorium, offices.
What's the current practice for students, like if, like obviously, we know that the teachers don't want you to be like on your phones while you're supposed to be learning, but like, what's the current practice for like hallways and like the cafeteria?
We allow them.
I was
currently-
asking the students, but
Oh,
I wanna
sorry.
hear your, I wanna hear your vibe too, I'm curious about what their perception of it is, and then I would love to hear your thoughts too.
We're allowed to use them in the cafeteria, which I think is fine, cause like, we're just eating. And most of the time, like, we're talking to each other instead of just being on our phones anyways.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to have them in the hallways, or advisory. So.
Is that consistent with?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so am I hearing that's going to change?
The expectation is that the cell phones, to comply with the law, are going to be put away.
But that's not what I'm hearing, because according to the law, lunchtime is not part of the school day, correct?
Correct. The way this is, I mean, this is fine. This is the way, and I think, I saw someone had linked it here.
Well,
I think it was
and-
after
and
I'd
that's
sent-
what
I'd
I
sent the
wanna make
regs out
sure,
last
'cause there's
night,
a
right?
disconnect
So,
here.
so here's what the group, we talked about this, and the group felt that there was, that it was important to make clear what was the expectation, and that the expectation would be that, you know, that cell phones are not gonna be allowed in school. What we also said is that this is going to be an enforceable practice that happens at the building level and happens according to the handbook and happens using, you know, the administrative professional judgment of people who are doing that work,
Mhm.
right? So there's going to be different practices of quote-unquote enforcement that take place depending on the circumstance. The cafeteria is gonna be a circumstance where there's gonna be different types of enforcement, if at all, than in other in other places of the building. But we didn't wanna say, for the sake of just consistency, we didn't wanna say, to leave them out of the cafeteria or to allow them in the cafeteria.
My brain is going right now, because that opens completely up to like disproportionate discipline right there, right? Like, if you are saying, like, cause I hear legally, the cafeteria and lunch is not part of the school day. I hear you saying, we're doing this to be consistent with the law, which is not accurate. And I'm hearing that the current practice is that they are allowed in the cafeteria.
Well, again, I think that for the most part, for the kids it is. I would have to speak to one of the administrators at the high school to find out from them, like, what kind of enforcement is happening there or isn't happening there. Again, I think that that where they were coming from was just the consistency of the language in terms of like what is expected. But again, there's going to be, no matter what language we put in there, there's going to be a lot of different circumstantial situations that are gonna dictate how we respond to it, like what this gentleman, Jason was getting at. If we're getting the same kids over and over and over and over and over and over repeatedly, having issues with cell phone use in a way that's really distracting or problematic, that's gonna be dealt with differently than if it's just like, you know, a kid in the cafeteria randomly.
But there's a difference between like dealing with an individual student one-on-one and like understanding what that student's like individual circumstances with it, working with that student, and a like wink wink, we're just not gonna enforce it in the cafeteria.
Can I just make a comment though? The rationale for not enforcing it this year in the cafeteria was because we at the high school did a very slow closing process to the cell phone use. So like in the fall, the kids were kind of allowed to look at it in the hallway. We gave them the heads up that's gonna go away now. We're still allowing it in the cafeteria, but I believe the verbiage is that is expected to go away soon.
And I'm
So I
fine if
just
you
wanna-
want it to go away,
Yeah.
but it's not going away because legally we have to, and I wanna make sure that that's
Okay.
clear. That is a decision that the administration is making,
Okay.
and that needs to be specifically spelled out in here, including lunch, because including lunch is not due to being in compliance with state law.
Which I think is fine, Rob, like, it's
Right.
not, like,
Yeah.
if that's what the group of teachers and administrators, like, wanted to propose, like, that's okay, I think we just, when we're rolling out this to students and to faculty and staff, like, just being clear about, like, this exists, and this is, but that part is a little bit
Yeah, I
different, like,
understand.
that's going above and beyond the compliance of the
Correct, and I just want that to be
Understood.
spelled out.
Is saying cafeteria, that's not enough? We
No,
wanna be more
saying
specific.
lunch,
Okay.
because
So-
lunch is not part of the school day.
Is it possible to give, it sounds like a lot of this is decentralized and being pushed down to the principals or administrators at the school. Is it possible to adjust the language to say cell phones will not be present or not be out during the school day, during instructional time, and then building principals have the ability to allow cell phones during non-instructional times? So then the building principal could say, no, all
Yeah.
passing times, all lunch periods, all everything is nothing, but then it also gives the building principal the ability to say, during lunch, yes, you can have it, but during passing times, no. Like, I don't know if that's too much, or if
We
it
talked
has to
about
be
that
consistent
in-
across
in-
every school.
We talked about that, and they were like really against that. Because that was gonna open up all kinds of like problems with like, when do they say yes, when do they say no, for whom, during what time? It's like, they wanted a consistent message to students, and then they wanted to be able to, obviously, within the purview of the policy and within the purview of maintaining the right school environment and culture and trust and relationships and all those things that we aim to do, that they would have, again, a level of discretion to apply to common sense type of situations, which mostly is based on trends, right? If you're just, you know, if you're kind of building a trend of like it's a consistently problematic thing over and over again, there might be a different way you handle it versus something where it's like a one-time thing.
So I'm just thinking like the cafeteria mainly, like, so I know it sounds like this year it's not maybe being enforced and next year it's going to be, but I'm just trying to think like from the administrator standpoint, if the administrator has control over like when in those kind of flex times you can use it, then the administrator owns that piece of it, where if we put it in that says you'll never have them anytime, anywhere, then it becomes a inequity in consequences, right? So if there is an issue where students, it's not being enforced, then it becomes, well, this is a inequity because this school or these students are having issues or getting consequences because of their cell phones, but this school in this area doesn't. Where if it is up to the principal during the flex time and we are agreeing that it's only during the instructional time, then that gives the principal the ability to not have that. That's just kind of where my
To manage
brain
their
is
school,
thinking,
how
to
they
manage the
see
school
fit,
like
yeah.
during that flex time. And I get the bigger piece. I just think that there's a lot of schools and a lot of different levels and a lot of different cultures at the different schools to try to, like, I think we all agree that instructional time is instructional time, and that's the whole point of this, is to protect the instructional time. But I also wonder, like, in terms of managing that, if we're putting principals in a bad place in terms of consequence management, if we make something that is going to be difficult for schools to manage, and then if it doesn't get managed, then it becomes this consequence issue versus giving the control to the principals or the admin of saying, this is what the law says during instructional times, or during these are the times that the state law provides. During these times that are not covered by the law, it's up to the principal to be able to make that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think we believe the same thing. I really do. Like what you're saying, I completely agree with, is to have that. I think talking to the principals, I think that for them it was more problematic to have like a not super specific expectation for the kids, because from their perspective, that was going to probably invite more problems in terms of enforcement versus having a clear expectation for everybody and knowing, like, you know, whatever the expectation is, the reality of running a high school, which I did for 14 years, is that you're not going to be like enforcing this in every single situation.
I think
Right.
what Jason is saying is that the principal, there would absolutely be an expectation, but like I might have a different expectation than Jason would in our individual buildings. But there would 100% be an expectation
Right.
for each individual building outside of that instructional hours, right? That's what you're
Yes.
saying, right? Like instructional hours, every school in the district would have the same, but if I decide in my building based on what I think is best, that in the cafeteria during lunch you can have them because that works best for what works, as long as I'm disciplining equitably amongst those infractions, and you decide not to, then you have the leeway within the policy to do that. right? That's what you mean.
Yeah,
It's
that's
an
what I'm saying,
idea.
like, if you, yeah, same thing, like if,
So what do we need to change in the policy to reflect that?
That basically saying, like, instructional hours, this is the rule, like, at the building level, outside of instructional hours, you know, rule, like, the usage outside of instructional hours is determined at the building level and will be dictated in the handbook or something like that.
I also don't wanna make it too complex, I'm just trying to think of like, if we're setting, like, to your point earlier, like, if we're setting this policy that it makes it difficult for us to enforce, and then it becomes an enforcement issue, and then if we're not like, if it says you can't have it during the cafeteria, you're not enforcing it during lunch, then that becomes an issue where students are like, oh, nobody's following through with this rule or this policy or this guidelines, and I find that is problematic as well versus having leeway and maybe not having everything consistent across all the schools. And I don't know what's best. I'm not in the schools. I'm just trying to think, like, for me, like, I would, if I put my student hat on, and maybe you wanna jump in as well, but I would think that as a student, like, if there's a policy and I see students that are not following it and there's no consequences, then I'm going to be like, oh, well, I don't need to follow this policy, or I don't need to follow this. I think that there's clear guidance on the instructional time. I think it's those flex times that students are going to want to have devices. They're not in an instructional time. It's not taking away from learning, that I wonder if
There are
there's more
problems that
flexible-
come up with students using phones outside of instructional spaces though.
Yeah, bullying,
Right.
all sorts of weird
Picture
stuff.
taking, and there's problems that do come
Yeah,
up.
it's not just about the learning piece,
Yeah.
but I hear what you're saying too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not advocating for one or the other, but what I am opposed to is saying you are not allowed to use the phone anywhere during the time that you are in our building between 7 and 3, and then, like I said, knowing that, you
People-
know, you're allowing it in the cafeteria, or saying that we have to do that because of state law, when that's not true.
Okay.
So, like, wherever you wanna land, but I think if the high school wants to allow it in the cafeteria and the middle school doesn't, or the elementary does, I think that makes sense, right? Like, you know, have a progression, but I think if you have a policy, you can't set up a policy and then be like, we're not gonna enforce it.
No, I don't think we're saying that though. I think the idea is we're recognizing the fact that enforcing this policy, when you're talking about the prevalence of cell phones among teenagers and the realities that we are dealing with in the course of a school day,
Yeah.
the reality is like that there's going to be some level of common sense that needs to be applied. I think that's all we're saying. We're not saying we're not gonna enforce it.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna do our best as educators to apply enforcement in the most constructive way.
So if you're choosing to do it in the cafeteria, we need to say that in the policy.
Okay.
So it says it in the policy, so what do we need to change based on this conversation?
Where does it say it?
It says parentheses, cafeteria.
It needs to specifically say during lunchtime, like not just cafeteria.
Well, so, okay,
See, I don't understand that. Why wouldn't cafeteria just suffice?
Because the state statute says school hours, like school instructional time, and lunch is not part of the instructional day.
so
Okay,
the
neither,
space
but
and the
neither
thing are not the same thing.
I understand, but neither are like it says hallways, so we have to say passing time too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we have to say before school time? After school time? No, before school time wouldn't count, okay.
You could change it and just say instructional time, and then i.e. like, because that's really what it is, it's about instructional time. It's not the physical location, it's the actual.
See, I don't get that, only because the first statement says, in all North Kingstown schools, student use of electronic devices will be prohibited while on school grounds, excluding buses during school hours. Doesn't that cover everything?
So cafeteria is a place, lunch is a activity. So for example, if it says cafeteria, but the seniors are in the spine, or the seniors are outside in the courtyard, or whatever you all let seniors do, that's not cafeteria.
Okay, but
So I would say-
on school grounds during school hours.
Go ahead, Laura.
we're talking about this bill that's the copy of it is in the folder, correct? Because it doesn't say that the policy has to address instructional time. It says the policy has to, it says school day, which is different than instructional time. So I think like there seems to be a hang up about
Yeah, before
that,
school and
and
after
this-
school doesn't matter, it's
yes.
during the school day.
It's during the school day, which includes more than instructional hours.
Correct.
Alright, so,
So I don't think it's inconsistent to say that we're complying with the law, because the law says we have to have a policy, and that's what we're doing, and it's not covering something that's not part of the school day.
Right.
And we're not, the statute is not limited to instructional hours. It is, instructional hours isn't even present in the text of the bill. It just says school day.
That I think RIDE has interpreted, right?
Yeah, it does say school day, but then it references the regulations,
Oh.
and then there's a RIDE advisory that makes it very clear that, that is excluding lunch, recess period, study hall, homeroom, common planning, student passing time, and pre- and post-school teacher time, and any other time that is not actual instruction time.
So can I-
Thus, the law would not be applicable during lunch period and student access to cell phones while on school grounds during school, jeez. Huh. Yeah,
So where can we find that? Like what you just read?
yeah, it's an advisory opinion, I can send it to you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, 100%.
civilians don't know how to get things.
Yeah, and you know what, I apologize, I don't have all your emails, in fact, you know what, if you don't
You
mind,
can't
I'm
reply
just
all.
gonna
No,
pass these
just
around,
send
if you wanna
a-
give me the emails, and that way I can, because sometimes things pop up at the meeting, I can send it to you.
reply all.
Just do
Reply
a
all.
reply all when I send the agenda.
It's okay,
Yeah.
it's okay, Andrew and
And
technology.
but I ain't
we're
counting on me
friends.
cutting and pasting something.
You're doing great, we
Reply
believe
all.
in you. I do think though that we should perhaps consider referencing, because that's a public document, right?
That advisory?
Yeah.
100%.
Like, we might wanna reference that, because that does go into, like, exactly what you just said. And I always think of policies in two ways, like proactive, but then also reactive, as like the person that the appeals come to, on the school committee. And so I was thinking about, like if a parent or guardian is upset because their child's getting upset and they have a difference in opinion on when they should be able to use the phone versus you all, like I'm just trying to think of like how do you make sure that like it's very clear so that if there is this difference in opinion, that then you or Ken can make a really clear judgment on it, or the school committee can make a really clear judgment on it. And that's where I'm just trying, like that's what I think is most important, is that piece of it, because like hopefully there won't be, you know, that level of conflict about it, but I always try to make sure that like at least there's like clearness in like what we're doing. And so again, to Jen's point though, if the school administrators have decided that they would like X and that's above and beyond the RIDE opinion's interpretation of the law, that's totally fine. But I do think we just wanna be consistent and make sure that everyone's clear on that, make sure that like that North Kingstown School Department has made that choice. Because you know, you're gonna have teachers in your building whose kids go to Charahoe, who go, you know, like it's not, might be different from district to district depending on how their choices that they're making.
Yeah, in fact, the districts a few of the districts we looked at they were like higher level than
Oh,
this.
but yeah,
They were like,
stringentness.
yeah, they were pretty, even higher like level of restriction.
Okay, so with that, did you just send that to everyone?
Yep, I think I did anyway. You're laughing.
I'm not laughing.
I replied all to Jen's meeting invite
There
and
it
I
is, East
attached that.
Providence, yep, okay.
Yeah, so I definitely think we should reference this document, for sure. Like, we could say like, you know, the law, and then say like, you know, in consultation with the right opinion of blah, blah, blah.
James, what do you two think about any of this policy? Anything that's missing? Anything that,
I just like watching their faces.
Yeah.
I have a good view of the student face here in this situation.
anything that you two are like, oh no, that's bad, or oh, that's amazing?
So
Abby's like, I'm so glad you asked.
So theoretically, I know next year, they don't want cell phones in school at all, but we could potentially have them still in the cafeterias. Or no, is that like?
According to the state law, yes, you can, but it sounds like the administration does not want that to happen.
So if, as a student on this committee, you would like to voice your opinion on that, you may. No,
Yes,
seriously, like
please
you,
do.
we're in
I
we're in
just
a conversation part of it. Like, so basically, the law says this, RIDE, the Department of Education said this. Those two things are not 100% friends. RIDE's basically saying their interpretation of the law is a little bit different than, I think, what was written in the law. And then North Kingstown gets to look at that, and they have to do the minimum, but they could do more, and it looks like what we're proposing right now might be a little bit more. So if you wanna advocate one way or the other, you're welcome to, as we're trying to figure out what to write, basically.
That's why students have
Yeah.
a voice on committees like this.
Get it, Abby?
I just kind of find it hard to like how this can be like enforced like in practicality.
Tell us more.
Because like as like Mr. Nagata said, like he's had situations where he's had to deal with students who like continuously use their phones, and I feel like during the lunch period, like if like say the building principal like confronts a student about it, I feel like it's just gonna continuously happen again. I feel like.
When this was like enforced in the school, they did send out like a list of like first, second, and third offenses. So that's how they would be doing that. But I just don't think it would be a big deal to have your phone when you're eating lunch or like sitting in advisory. It's like it's not like you're really doing anything.
Well, I also wanna say, those rules that we made up as a school happened long before this took place. It happened like last fall. So I'm sure once the policy is approved, you know, all schools will kind of shuffle how they're approaching this. So don't worry. Don't worry yet.
No, but that's not what you said. What I heard you just say though is that, so say Mrs. Finkelstein gets up at the beginning of September, right? First day of school, you have an assembly, whatever it is. And I don't know how you all get introduced to changes that happen in the school, but she gets up and she says, hey, the school committee has a new policy based on the state law that was about cell phone bans. From now on, you are no longer allowed to have your cell phones, obviously in class, but also in the hallways and during lunchtime in the cafeteria, right? So that's the newly stated rule. I guess what I heard you say is that you, and if I got this wrong, correct me, that you don't think it's a big deal for students to have their phones during lunch.
Yeah,
Alright.
I don't think it is.
Yep. Do you think that they would understand the compliance? Like, do you think if we said to them, because I think understanding is really the first battle of, you know, like if I don't understand a rule, like I'm just like, this is stupid, like whatever. And then I'm like underneath the table texting my friends. Do you think the rationale of, you know, the reasons that we don't want you to have your phones during lunch is because we really want to encourage you to be having face-to-face communication with the people that you're eating with, and also because we want to make sure that students aren't like bullying other students via text or social media, or maybe taking pictures of students that they don't have consent to take. Do you think students understand that rationale? Because that's the rationale that I understand for maybe not having it during lunch.
I think they do, and I think they know like the consequences with that.
Yep.
And I think they are enforced very
Yep.
well, like
What would-
regarding bullying and like taking photos of others.
Yep. What would the counter argument for a student be? To say, no,
Like, to
no,
keep
Dr.
phones?
Earl, we should be able to have our phones during lunch because it benefits students in X way. Cause like that's, like, you know what I mean?
I think it's a good way to like, I don't know, I mean for me, like me and my friends always like go through like our camera rolls and like share like what we did over like the weekends, and like it's fun to like look at pictures with people. And it's fun to just like sit and like be able to like not worry about anything, like I don't know.
Just be able to disassociate a little bit.
Yeah, like that's where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
And like it's not like I'm never gonna talk to my friends at lunch if I have my phone. Like I talk to them every day, and like
Yeah.
it's just like for me it's nice to be able to just like sit for a minute and like go on my phone.
I feel like it also like discourages students from using it during actual instructional time, because I feel like it provides kind of a comfortable space for them to use it in the set day instead of just waiting the entire day.
Mhm. Yeah, like you know you can check
You
at
have, like, an
lunch kind of vibe.
authorized use time.
Mr. Mezzanotte, thoughts on this? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm just thinking through like if I make a law like or a rule, I really want to be able to look a student right in the face and say, hey, this is why. Like
Yeah.
I really like to believe what we write, and obviously we have few choices here, but this cafeteria one like we own, right? And so I always defer to teachers and administrators on it, but
No, I
would-
mean, I think the students have a great point. I think that the the expectation, okay, to me is that what we're trying to say to students is that, you know, we understand cell phones, we understand that they are a very, big part of your life, that they're something that we're all kind of addicted to in one way, shape, or form, I guess, to a certain extent. And they're part of it. I think the message is simply that, you know, in the school environment, they can become problematic in a few different ways, right? They can become problematic to your intentional focus, you know, in terms of instruction. They can become problematic, you know, like Dr. O referred to, as far as like social relationships, bullying, inappropriate, videotaping, picture taking, things of that nature. I think that from a standpoint of managing a school building, the people who we put in charge of our school buildings, we do trust them. We have to a certain extent, that they have, you know, that they're professionals and they apply good judgment and good educational judgment when they handle situations. And I think that for their ability to do their jobs, it always makes more sense, in my opinion, from a management standpoint, to just set clear expectations about what it is. If we're saying, and we're saying this with the policy, I understand the law is requiring us to write a policy, but we are staying with the policy, we're saying that cell phones are a problematic part of the school environment, and we have to take some steps to address that. In terms of phrasing that up from a school administrative standpoint, it makes more sense to do it in a kind of clear way, right? Where we're saying, okay, this is how we feel about these devices in our school. You know, we know that enforcement's gonna be really difficult, but we also know that it's kind of out of our hands to a certain extent, you know, because we have to have this policy.
Except for this part.
What's that?
Except for this part.
Go for the cafeteria.
Yeah.
I think that's where some of us are
Okay.
thinking through, just because we
It
know we
is,
have the,
but
we know we
let's-
have the base.
So again, let's play out a scenario here.
Mhm.
I'm in the cafeteria, we have this policy. We're saying, all right, we're gonna take the cafeteria piece out of it. Student is holding up a phone, videotaping you as you eat.
Well, that's in a different violation, that's a different,
How?
because we have, don't you have a
I wasn't
policy
holding up
about?
videotaping, I was just looking at my phone.
How do you deal with that now? How did you deal with that before
We-
September?
I mean, the school has to deal with it in whatever way they do. I don't handle those myself, because that's not my job now, but they have to
Yeah.
deal with it. But I'm just saying that it creates ambiguity in terms of what the expectations are. Right.
I don't think that's necessarily true, because you can say, it does say in the policy that you cannot use your cell phone for videotaping.
In what policy?
In this one,
Inappropriate.
inappropriate.
So there already is a rule at the high school that you can't do
I'm
that.
with you
when
though, like, I
decide
could buy-
yourself.
But
Doesn't have to just-
again, being a school administrator in charge of 1,300 teenagers, it does create more difficulty in terms of being able to exercise judgment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I can buy that, right? So that is justifiable. So I think for me though, what I am most worried about is I want to make sure that we have administrator buy-in on this, because if what I am most worried about is it says do not have them during lunch or the cafeteria, but then the nice folks that are in charge of cafeteria time for 1,000 students are like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. And then all the kids have their phones during lunch, and so that devalues the language of the thing.
That's-
So then, wait, hold on. So then, some kid gets in trouble, right? Because they have their phone. But everybody's got their phone now. But this one kid gets in trouble, and then the parents say like then they're mad about it, and then we are saying like, well, it's because the parents are like, it's not in the law, like it's not blah blah blah, and we're saying, well, we wrote it in, but then they're like, but everyone has their phones out, and not everybody gets in trouble for it. Like that's what I'm most
100%.
worried about is
100%.
because at least with the law stuff, it's the law. We have the backbone of that to say no, this is what it is. But like that's kind of gray for me, and I guess if we leave it in, I would just want buy-in from the administrators and the folks that are actually doing lunch duty, that they're going to at least somewhat be consistent with
Correct.
the
100% agree, and that would be my approach. My expectation in my role for an administrator handling a situation like this is that they would be able to explain to me why they took the action they did or why they didn't take the action that they did based on what they do every day to do their job in their school. And the most important thing, I always say this, the most important part of a school administrator's job, next to safety, which comes first, is culture. And the culture that you observe, maintain, preserve as best you can, and that has to do with what you're talking about here. When you're in the cafeteria, you look around, what are we seeing? Okay, what are we seeing? What's coming to us? What are we aware of? What's happening? What's being brought to us as far as the student experience in that space? Are we hearing things about bullying? Are we hearing things about kids being uncomfortable? If these are things that we're hearing and that we're observing, that's gonna change a little bit of how we address that area. And that's part of the job, that is the job in many ways. I think that's an important part of this. There has to be some room for judgment that plays in.
Do we have any, we probably don't, but like any data on like how many issues that we have during lunch, like from a discipline perspective? I'm just thinking, like, I always try to solve problems that are actually problems. I'm curious if like, and I'm not expecting the answer, it's more of like a pondering question.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, what are we trying to solve? But not, you know what I mean? From a
No, I
discipline
understand.
perspective.
Again, I don't know that.
I wouldn't
yeah,
expect you
yeah.
to, but that's just something I was thinking about.
Just the last thing I'll say on this subject is I just read something that came out from RIDE this weekend, in that according to SurveyWorks, more than 1 in 3 middle and high school students are classified as caregiving youth. And for those students, having access to a phone during lunch period
Mhm.
could really be critical.
100%.
And I think that's something to consider. So, you know, that might be the only time that they have to check in on
Mhm.
a family member that they are responsible for. So just like we talked about, you know, why staff still has access to their phone,
Mhm.
it's the same thing for those 1 in 3 students.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Would this be where it might be different for high school and middle than elementary? Because the likelihood of an elementary school student being a caregiver
Yeah, it
and
said
needing their
middle and
phone,
high
so
school,
it
yeah.
would be like, that would fall under
Yeah.
like a different sort of set of
Mhm.
responsibilities for the high school. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just.
Right, right,
And
right.
that kind of goes to what we were talking about, like a different.
The graduated.
Yeah,
Right, and I agree with you, Jen, 100%, I
Yeah.
agree with you. What I also would wanna make sure about is that we're not opening the door to people, like, maybe taking advantage of that for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I agree with you 100%. In the
Yeah.
case of that situation, we always have to account for unique circumstances with what kids are dealing with,
yeah.
100%.
Well, that would also be an area where a teacher could say, if a student's like, I have to pick up my brother, but I have a change of schedule, can I
Mhm.
use my phone? As a teacher, I would say yes to that. You
Mhm.
have my permission to text your mom to say your sports schedule changed, you can't pick up your brother, whatever.
Correct.
So I guess that falls there, but
I was thinking more like to be able to use the phone during their lunch
Yeah,
period,
to
to have that
communicate.
check-in. You know
Yeah,
how it
to
is, like
check
when
in.
you're checking in with your kid, like
Yeah.
they're not feeling well, like just to
Right.
have that reassurance, right? Like
Yeah.
1 in 3 is a lot of students. And so just to be able to have that pulse point and
Yeah.
just, you know, to have that reassurance or like, you know, I think that's important.
But this is where, regardless of whatever rule we come up
Yeah.
with, this is where that relationships piece, that communication piece comes in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because again, what my expectation would be, if this was a situation where it rose to a level we wouldn't want it to, what kind of conversation do we have with the child?
But I'm not even saying like this is a situation, like, and I'm just putting, like, if this is a situation of daily caregiving,
Yeah.
right? Like right now, every day, like, they're checking in, they're texting, right? Like, so it's not something, like, I'm not talking about like an imminent emergency, right?
Mhm.
Where you have to say like, oh my God, they're in the hospital, or whatever, just the touch base, like you do on a daily basis with
Mhm.
your children, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
taking that phone away all day
Yeah.
removes that access to communication.
Yep.
Being able to still have it at lunchtime gives the student the ability to have that communication.
And again, I think that's where we would make room for that. You know what I mean? We would make room for that with whatever like level of oversight we would provide. Whatever, there would have to be. My expectation was there would be. You know what I mean? That again, and that's where really so much of this comes down to. When it comes to how we deal with these situations, the way we deal with them is critically important, because it's gotta be a conversation. If a student ever came to anyone at our school district and explained what you're just saying right now, 100% of the time, I would expect that they would be sympathetic and understanding of that student, they would apply that type of judgment in allowing them to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, and I don't doubt that they would.
Yeah.
It's more my point of like, I feel personally that a student should not have to come to you and say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a situation where I am like the primary, like, you know, I'm the one who's responsible for taking care of my grandmother every day after school.
Yep.
I don't feel that that student should have to come to you for permission to touch base with them every day in the afternoon. Like, I think those kids should, and again, I'm not monitoring the school, but like, why should that student have to come and ask permission to check in with their grandmother?
I wouldn't want them to ask permission for it either.
But
I
right
really
now they
wouldn't.
have to,
Well,
if
I
you're
would,
gonna
I would
take
just say
access
this,
to
if
the
that's
cafeteria away.
what I would say is this, if there's a situation where that's happening and the school is addressing it,
Mhm.
okay? So if we're playing this out and I'm addressing that with you, for example,
Yep.
that the way we address that would be to have a conversation saying, hey, is there an issue for why you need to use your phone every day? Can we work with you on this? Can we help you with this? Is there a thing that you have to do? The way we approach that to build a relationship in a positive way with the student is the way that I would want it to happen, right? As opposed to, you are wrong, you have your cell phone out, you're in trouble, you know what I mean? I think the way we handle it is the way that we build those bonds that kids can trust us.
I just had one quick point, maybe not quick, but in the suggestions from the Connecticut policy, there was a part about parents and guardians should not expect to communicate directly with their children using their cell phones. I don't know how it is here, but in my previous experience, it seemed like most of the interaction from the students was not via text, it was usually through like social media or other things, which sounds like through some of the programs that we have at the school, those things can get blocked. At least for Chromebooks, I don't know for cell phones, depending on what network they're on. But what I found is a lot of the issues that I had were parents texting students in the middle of class time. And then having that conversation of like, hey, you need to put your phone away, and then be like, oh, it's just my mom, we're trying to coordinate plans and times and other stuff. And I'm probably guilty of doing this as well. But I think to kind of the 2 points, like, if the policy is that there's nothing, like not lunchtime, not anything, then that needs to be, I think, added into this policy just to further, like, the expectation is that if you need to get a hold of your student, that you need to call the front office. Because you have that pressure from parents texting you or calling or doing and trying to turn that off. And then conversely, if it is decided or if we push that lunchtime is the time when students could have their phone, then that needs to potentially be in there, like, if you need to contact your student, please do so during this time to prevent parents from communicating during instructional hours.
Would that go in this policy, you think, or would that be something that would be more of a like a handbook language thing?
I think it's just, it's not in the policy, I think it's just making whatever
Oh,
we
yeah, I guess
decide
you're right.
clear to
I mean,
parents.
yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
very, very valid point and
Mhm.
definitely should be communicated, and also a good point that in addition to students, like I liked what you said about like how outside of class, like if you're sitting in class and you're like, oh, I really need to text like my mom because baseball got shifted and blah, blah, blah. But you know you have like another hour before lunch and but you know like, okay, I can do it during lunch, so I'm not gonna do it during class. Like I heard that part. Like I think on the same like case, the parents and guardians could be like, okay, I know Jimmy's in class right now, but I can text him at 1 to make sure to tell him that like he needs to pick up his little sister, right? Like 1 wasn't a good example. I'm sure lunch is at like 10 a.m. But like, but like you know what I mean? Like I see. I think whatever we do, helping communicate it to families
That's
will
critical,
help
yeah.
because if it's no, then I know I need to figure out my stuff either before 6 a.m. or whenever the kids go to school, and then, or I'm not going to be able to get a hold of them until after, because I highly doubt that our delightful front staff is going to go find them unless it's an emergency. Like that's just
I
not.
think the front staff is going to shut their phones off and not take any.
I know.
Send it all to
I know.
voicemail.
When I was in school, we had payphones in the school. I'm just saying.
No.
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
We had a payphone in the school.
Call
100%.
collect.
Call collect.
Collect.
Beat someone.
Yeah,
Okay, so
So what else before this moves forward to the school committee, what other changes need to be made? What else has to happen? Is there any other information that people want?
well, and also just to clarify, the administration absolutely, like the group that Rob had made, absolutely can propose language, like propose stuff to this group. A majority of this group has to decide that they like that students can't use their phone during the cafeteria for it to go up to the school committee, and then the school committee can mess around with it. So like, like, the group exists for a reason, is I guess what I'm saying, and so I'm not saying good or bad, but like, we do have, like, it doesn't always have to be 100% consensus either way. Like, we can, I think you have thoughtful debate, which I think we just did, and then everyone gets to decide, okay, it still says cafeteria, they still can't use it during lunch, do I think that's right or not? And then if more than half of us vote yes, then it goes up, and if more than half of us vote no, then we need to talk about it more. Just to like clarify the process, because I greatly appreciate the admin's feedback and stuff, but the committee exists for too. So we don't have to have 100% consensus, and that's okay.
I also want, like, I'm speaking for the group that worked on this, and I'm speaking with giving my own
I just have
opinion
A
personally, like,
Lorex
as
quote
well.
just popped into my head. I'm speaking for the trees.
Yeah, but I mean, I also can, like, I haven't brought this to the entire administrative staff. I haven't brought this in front of them and talked to them all about it. I could do that before, because I don't wanna like speak for them if maybe they feel differently about some of the language that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
like
Maybe
this
they
is
feel
the
different about the
draft.
cafeterias.
Yeah, we have time.
You know, I can bring it to them and just get their feedback, because I think I know how they think, but I haven't brought it to them.
How
so-
many, and I don't want to name, but how many, I know we talked about this, you had administrators, parents, and students on the committee, how many total people?
Jazz, how many? We had about, because we split into groups.
They were like, that was 100 years
I would
ago.
say there was, for cell phones, there were probably like 7 or 8 of us, and then 7 or 8 in the AI group.
And then what was, in terms of like yay or nay on the cafeteria, what was the breakout?
It was a spirited discussion.
I remember you said that, that's why I'm
It was a spirited
asking.
I
discussion.
think this group should decide what, like, I think we should vote.
I'm just
on
trying
it.
to get
No,
a feel for
yeah.
like, 'cause-
But I'm saying if we vote on it,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying it goes up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we decide how we feel as a group. Majority wins, because that's how the school committee votes.
Yep.
If the majority says, yep, leave cafeteria in, Rob takes it back to the admins and say, hey, this is the policy that's probably gonna go forward to the school committee. Do you all have any feedback on it as is? It's 90% just in compliance with the law, the one above and beyond, or this and this. What do you all think? Will you be able to enforce this? And then it should come back here, we listen to their feedback, and then we can make a decision about how it goes up. That would be my recommendation.
I just wanna know
Yeah.
how that piece came out. Was it a majority vote? Was
There's
it
like 4 of them.
Oh no, everybody was on board at the end.
at the end?
Yeah.
What was the like?
It was like I said, it went round and
Same
round a
as
lot.
this, yeah.
It went round and round a lot. There was a lot of struggles that people had. Like people had struggles with the whole thing. Like they were struggling with the whole concept of having it. You know.
Because I think it's because it's not a black and white issue.
Right.
There
That's
are
what their
pros, I can
frustration
see it each way, right? I totally get why you might not want students to have their phone during lunch. I totally get why students might want their phones during lunch. I totally get that it would be hard to equally discipline on that. Like it's not, there's no right answer, it's just kind of deciding what's best.
Generally
and going
speaking,
from
the
there.
feedback from people who were, are in the schools or parents who, are connected to the schools is that, things are going pretty well as they are, and they don't want to disrupt that too much. That was most of the feedback that we got from, that was pretty much all.
Things that have been put in practice this year.
Correct. Like the high school this year, I know has taken some steps towards like kind of getting us more closer to this. People seem to think that's going pretty well, generally speaking from the group.
But the students could use
So-
their phones during lunch.
Before,
I'm just saying, I really think it's important. I think, no, I don't think it's important that they have it, but I think we have to have a really good, justification to them why they can't have it during lunch. And I think if it's really you can't have it during lunch, no one has it during lunch.
So I understand that, and you know what? Here's what, because I think we
wants
can
to
have
show
this
pictures of
conversation.
her cats.
Yeah.
Like, what else am I gonna do with this?
And listen, what I'm for is common sense. I understand it. I totally do, and I hear where you're coming from. I just also want to let me bring this back to our group, if that's okay.
Well, first I'd be curious to just see, and it could be just a straw poll, kind of where folks are, on what we might want to put forward. Because if 80% of us don't think it should be in, or 80% of us do think it should be in, that might help Rob with the language. We might want to, of what we send back to them. So I don't know how you want to run that, because I'm not
Can
in charge
we-
right now.
If we do that, my thought would be, so the instructional time is instructional time, but it seems like there's a couple areas where there's that flex time, so passing periods and lunchtime. I think it might be useful also to talk, or if we're gonna do a straw poll, to also look at the passing periods as well. Because I think passing periods and lunchtime are two separate things, and people might have different views, and
Yep.
that's okay, but I think
to
I think that conversation could, the conversation we're having right now about lunchtime could also maybe then move into passing periods depending on how this goes, and if we have that information now, then
Be
maybe,
Yep.
you know, figure that out before sending it back to get additional feedback.
How long is a passing period?
The high school
It's
was it
5 minutes.
14
minutes?
seconds.
Yeah.
Currently, it's
Feels
2
like
minutes at the
14.
middle school.
Wow, how do you make it
They
from one
had
end to the
to adjust
other?
it so they could make up their instructional time, so you don't
Oh,
have
that's
makeup
right.
days.
Yeah.
So my
Yes.
daughter came home one
You have
week.
no time to pass. No,
Yes.
especially having
It's
to
all
get
right,
from the
they're
bottom to the
working,
top at
they're
Whitford,
working
yeah.
through it.
Okay, so, okay, so I'll start. And this isn't an official tally, but for lunchtime, I think they should have it. For passing time, I could go either way. Anybody else?
And people can change their mind too.
Yeah.
This is more just to get a sense so that we can.
I'm the same, and I would add, I'm always in favor, always, of giving discretion to the building principals if we can. So I would be in favor of saying that exceptions to policy can be granted by the principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
I feel pretty strongly that I don't want elementary school kids with their phones out at lunch.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry, yeah, I was just talking about middle and
Oh, you're talking about middle and high
yeah,
school?
yeah,
Oh, okay, I just
yeah.
wasn't sure because they're
Yep.
globed together, so
Yep.
I feel like middle school could go either way. I prefer middle schoolers not have their phones out during lunch either, and I feel like in terms of how middle school, I've observed it going, it's really good for it to have it like away during the
Mhm.
course of the day. Because of like bullying policies and cutting down on the example of what you
Mhm.
described. But I think in high school, they should be able to have their phones out for both cafeteria and passing time. I don't know if you're tallying both.
I am, yep.
Okay, yeah, I would say yes for high school for cafeteria and passing time.
What about at the discretion of the building?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
discretion works.
All right, so for high school cafeteria, yes.
Okay,
Passing time, no.
Okay.
And that's just, for me, it's a safety issue, like if kids are on their phone, then their heads are down, so if you're in a building and they're like bumping into each other, or there's, I don't know, walking down the steps, like that's what I think that just becomes a safety issue, or if
Okay.
you're confined to a space, it's different. Middle school, I'm no on passing periods, I'm not sure about lunch, I could go either way, elementary, no for both.
okay.
Also, to the point that was made, like I also feel like, you know, building principals having kind of jurisdiction or leeway, or, you know, kind of passing it down to them, so in favor of that as well.
Okay, perfect. Abby, before I get to you, where are you on elementary school?
Oh, no,
Okay.
absolutely not.
Okay.
Which is
Alright.
exactly why I take issue with Ride's interpretation of their.
Okay, Abby, you're up.
Like a
Lunch
reminder.
for me, yes. Passing periods, I don't really.
Okay. What about, how do you feel about, like, at the discretion of each individual principal, how they manage it within their own school?
Yeah, I guess I understand that. I think that's
Would you be for or against that?
like, what do you really mean by that?
So, like, let's say we said, we're not going to, but like at the elementary school, we're like, yeah, they can have them, you know, out if they want them, but we said that each principal could make that decision on their own, so it might be different at Fishing Cove than it would be at Forest Park.
Oh, I think that's fine.
Okay, and where are you on middle and elementary school?
I think phones at lunch for middle school is fine, and then no for passing times, and then no for both for elementary school.
Okay, all right. James?
I think I'll be in favor of having them during
Oh,
cafeteria.
I can't, can you, okay, go
I'll
ahead.
be in favor of having them for the cafeteria, but not passing period for high school.
Okay,
For middle school, it'd be a no for both, and then same with elementary school.
and what was that last thing you said?
Same for elementary school.
Elementary, and how do you feel about the discretion of the building principals?
Well, I feel like there has to be some kind of standard, like, for everything, because I feel like that inadequacy, like, not being able to have them all be similar and like have, if it's, I don't say it's really fair.
Okay, yeah?
I am all in favor of cell phones during lunchtime. I am not in favor of cell phones during passing time. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's hard for the kids because we only have 5 minutes to go from class to class and know to put it away, and some teachers are more strict than others, so I think skip the headache. For middle school, it would be nice for me if the principals could kind of do this as a level and not as a building. I think it would be, I feel like there's sometimes a lot of different inconsistencies between the middle schools, so it would be, I'm for whatever they wanna do, but it would be nice if the 2 middle school principals could meet. If the elementary people could meet, so that if a student we're a huge town, if a
Yeah.
student
Mhm.
goes from,
Mhm.
you know, Forest Park to Hamilton, they know that at least those rules are consistent.
That's a great
Oh, and they'll
idea.
talk too,
Yeah.
like they'll
Oh, yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're in sixth
Boy
at
Scouts
CMS and you're
coup.
in sixth at middle,
Right.
it's the same
You
thing.
can do
I like
what?
that. Yep.
Other transfer
Okay.
requests.
Did we also discuss advisories?
But we didn't talk about advisory, go ahead.
I mean, for me also, I don't really do anything for
So-
advisories. I think it's kind of like
Oh, let her talk.
I would be in favor of having it.
Okay.
Jen, I don't know if we have autonomy over that, it might be class time.
Oh, that's class.
I mean,
Sorry.
what it says, we find the glorious advisory. I mean, the statute exempts
Except like homeroom, like I would.
study hall,
equivalent-
and I don't
We
know,
don't have
like,
study
I don't know what the
What is-
distinction
oh,
between
we don't
advisory
have study hall.
versus
VLC.
study hall.
VLC is
I-
not study hall.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So advisory has some kind of instruction going on?
Advisory is, yes, advisory is.
So if it's got instruction
considered
going on, then I would
instructional
say pursuant to this, it would be covered under the instructional time.
I'm not,
time.
I literally said nothing. No, I was just laughing that I thought that she said really like it's not study hall, that was the part that I was enjoying.
Special guests don't get to vote, Chaz, but if you wanna give your opinion, I'd be happy to hear it.
I'm actually gonna be honest, I'm kind of torn, because I kind of have a different opinion personally versus professionally, so professionally, I feel like whatever the rule is should be the same across all levels, no matter what, just for the sake of uniformity and enforcement, to be
Yeah.
honest. On a personal level, I actually think I would align almost identically to what Mia just actually said. I think doing it at the level is wisest, just
Yeah.
because it's gonna cause
Yeah.
potentially problems to enforce it for the principals if
Yeah,
they hear the other middle school can do this and I can't.
yeah, I think that's genius, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Can I launch two safe grounds?
Yeah.
One is, I agree that it should be level. When I said principal discretion for exemptions, I really meant like the caregiver student that
Oh,
needs
okay,
it
yep,
for like
yep,
a
yep.
certain time. Like, I don't think that should have to go clear up to the school board to get an
Yep.
exemption from the policy.
So
I'd love to
she-
empower principals
Mhm.
to loosen it as necessary for specific circumstances. And then number two, when we're talking about elementary and middle, I do, not that it should be dispositive, but not all the kids have phones, and I think there's a huge percentage that don't, and that's gonna really increase the pressure and the keeping up and the jealousy and the nastiness. If they have it out at lunch, it's gonna be, who doesn't have a phone, or who has a dumb phone,
Yeah, yeah.
same. More so than at the high school.
Why is it different?
Because in high school, I think a much larger percentage of them have it. And also, I think middle school kids are meaner.
Oh,
I would
100%.
actually, I didn't vote, I don't know if I voted this way, but I actually do agree with that. I would love to like not see, I don't know if we're voting on elementary, but I don't think there's any need for the elementary kids to have their cell phones out during lunch at all.
No,
Okay.
I think that was
Checking.
universal,
I just
yeah.
panicked.
I just didn't wanna not discuss it,
No,
because we were
correct.
talking about everything else. So I think it's, I think.
You didn't, straw poll, we didn't get to vote. Excuse me. Rob gets to have a vote, he's been speaking for the trees, what's the stress?
Sorry, I
No,
got
I'm
stuck
like,
over
yeah,
there.
no,
Okay.
I'm hard no on elementary.
Okay.
Same with middle.
Okay.
For the reasons, that Laura just kind of articulated. And then for the high school hallways, I would say no. I think hallways are, inviting, inappropriate and often problematic behavior. I'm open to the cafeteria. I'm open to that being a space, but I also want to defer to the judgment of the people on the site. You know what I mean? And I do agree wholeheartedly with Mia's point about the levels being consistent. That's a really important thing, because we can't have, that's gonna cause chaos in the minds of kids if some kids can do it because they happen to go to one school versus another. I'm open to considering the cafeteria, but again, I would want to defer to people who are, in the space who can make it, have a feel for it.
If we make it open to the cafeteria, this still allows the discretion of the principal to ever say no at some point? Is that an option?
So that's,
Still?
I think we can write that into the policy, yes, right? Like,
I don't know what scenario that
Yeah.
would be, but maybe there is if you're kind of keeping a finger on the pulse, there is a thing going around at a school at a given moment, and in order to try to identify it or to resolve it or
Yes,
use
like
it.
next week, no cell phones because
Yeah.
X is happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
gossiping, probably worse.
Yeah.
I
Would
would
like to
say,
give
I would. No, so I, although viciously opposed to the overall policy in general, I would say I'm probably for cafeteria. I think the points that the students made were very valid. I am fine with not during passing time, although I think that will be hard to enforce, like somebody sending a quick text, but like I think from principle, like just for the safety, I can buy into the safety, and also the like get where you need to be on time kind of concept, I can buy into that. For middle school and elementary, let me do them separately, I guess for middle school cafeteria, I don't have enough context to like, I would be curious to see what the middle school principals thought, because I think the rationale that the students made could be the same for the middle schoolers, but I don't know developmentally like where the principals would land with that, and I've never had a middle schooler, so I don't know. But I would defer, I guess, the admin on their opinion on that. And then elementary school, I don't think that I would be fine with neither. And then I am fine with the discretion piece, but I do not think, like, I would like the buy-in now. Like, so I would like the principals to agree, like, yes, this is what we're doing, and then do it, versus, like, I definitely don't want discrepancies from the different elementary schools, different middle schools, and the high school. But I also think it's important that, like, the admins have the policy to support them as well. So I don't want it to just be up to the principal to decide cafeteria or not. Like, I think we should all agree with their feedback, what we're writing, and then if there needs to be small exceptions or something's going on, the principal can do that. But like, I think you're writing a policy for a reason, is where I would stand on that.
Okay, so it seems like we're pretty clear, elementary, no, middle, I think we're all like, probably not the best idea.
Yeah, the majority was
like
Okay.
change for like school like lunches. I feel like for school sponsored events, I feel like middle school students have more like a dependence on like their guardians, and that line of communication should be like is almost a necessity, rather than like high schools, which I feel like students are a lot more independent and are almost able to function themselves.
Okay, that's.
So your rationale for that lunch text thing was the same for middle school in your mind, because they have no cars and no friends that have cars and things like that. And again, I would be curious to see what the folks in the middle school particularly.
About cell phones at lunch?
Yeah, and about what like the pros and cons of it, because I think the pros are very similar to what the high school students stated, right? Like my daughter and her friend were in the backseat of my car yesterday, and her friend was showing her cute pictures of their dog. Literally, that's what they were chit-chatting about in the back of my car. But then also, like, I need to text my mom to tell her that cross-country practice got canceled, right? Like, so, and that thought process of when am I going to be able to do this, I need to tell her before, so that it's not distracting during school.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm curious about. But I also I imagine, middle schoolers are meaner. It was very nice in middle school, but I'd be curious, I think, to hear what they think.
Yeah.
Not good or bad, but, like, I don't know the right answer on that one. I don't know whether, like,
Middle
So.
school lunch cafeteria.
I
can't
do-
even imagine.
Oh, it's-
Yeah, I do know that,
Yeah.
well, we'll let them see.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see.
All right.
But
But definitely, I think, like, the vibe is yes for high school lunch, for sure, at least in here, so.
So
do
what I
you
would
have-
what I would recommend is we edit the language to reflect that, and then have you show the admins and have them confer with the people that actually do the lunch duty, and then come back to us with feedback. That would be my recommendation, Ben.
Where does middle school land? I think I'm clear on elementary.
seems like
I'm clear on, elementary's a no, high school's a yes, and then we can tweak it obviously, but middle school I'm a little,
What'd your count say?
Most people were a no for middle
Yeah, so write it
school,
as a no.
yeah.
alright, so middle school, no, elementary, no.
And that's the current policy, it has to be in your
Yes.
locker all day.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be locked up at the middle school, at DMS at least. I
Yeah,
don't
like
know
you
what
can
the
have it,
is.
but you can't take it
Yeah.
out, so you have it with you. Is there anything else?
Are kids locking up their watches too?
Yeah, they have to lock it
Yeah.
up, they can't even have it on them actually.
Yeah.
Some teachers are like, just, okay, I have so much to do, like, if kids aren't using it and it's like literally just on their wrist and they're not doing something with it, I think it's overlooked, but like, it's supposed to be locked in your locker. I don't think it's allowed to walk around with you unless you have a medical reason or something like
That's
that.
the middle school now?
At DMS,
Yeah.
I don't know what Wickford
It's the
does.
same thing with
Is it
Whitford.
same?
Yeah, I don't know if they're doing but that's the policy, you put it away and you don't see it, yeah. Is there anything else about this policy that people wanna see moved, like changed or recommended before Rob goes back and talks to people?
I really want to stop talking about this policy, but I did want to share the feedback. I don't want, take this for what it is. I did hear from some students that they felt it was very unfair for teachers to be set to a different example than students.
I agree with that.
I don't know if I have an opinion on that, I trust our colleagues, I know, that's why I said it with a huff, I literally said that side. But I just wanted to share a couple of students, and they never talk to me, students rarely talk to me. A couple of high school students had mentioned to me that they felt that that was unfair. So I just wanted to voice the student's voice. I'm sorry for opening another topic on this.
My
immensely.
consistent feedback for all of them is if we're writing a new one or reviewing an old one is that we should have paragraph numbers and letters to the subparagraphs for ease of citations and discussion.
Yes, I did that to the purchasing one that went forward, and I will do
Mhm.
that when they go forward to the school committee. Yes. And I agree with you on the staff, like I hear you, Mia, but I just think it sets a, like, I'm not saying like staff must, but just something in there about, and maybe if we're putting in there that they can have them at lunchtime, it makes it, like, I feel better about it, but just, I think,
I think you just have to be able to justify it.
Yeah.
Same thing as I was saying
Yeah.
about, like, I wanna feel really confident about why you can't have it during lunch, like, I wanna feel really confident about why the teachers are different than the students in that building. And I thought your points were taken, but I think I could make that same justification for students as well, that they have things in their lives that they need to be responsible for. I think you had made some nice points about why teachers needed it, but I think you could flip that same conversation. Again, I do not need to go down this rabbit hole, I just wanted to express what students had said to me. Did you have, one of your hands were up?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my teachers have been very like respectful about it. And I do notice that during class they try their best to not go on their phones, which I
That's
appreciate.
awesome. Yeah, and I think you earn respect from getting respect, and so I would imagine that's the case. I just wanted to share what the students told me.
I have a safety question. So are there phones in all the classrooms that work that will call where they need to call in the high school?
Yes.
Yeah, they
Because
have phone
Like
booth,
old-fashioned.
yeah.
I know
Pick up
that,
the
yeah,
phone
pick up the
phones.
phones, I know at URI, I have my phone on me at all times, I need it to get onto the computer actually, I can't even log on, you probably
I don't want
do
to talk
this.
about it, yes.
I know, it's,
WebEx calls.
it is worse than like bank security to get into URI's computer systems. But my classrooms don't always have a phone access, so if we have an emergency, I like keep my phone in my pocket
Yeah.
when I'm teaching because I have no way to like, call for help if we needed help and all the lockdown stuff and everything, so I was just curious about that, cause
They do still have the black phones, right?
Every classroom.
Yeah.
You won't get
in
any
district,
cell service in North Kingston.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's the funniest part of the
Yeah.
story in general,
Yeah.
is I've never gotten service in that
Yeah.
building in my life.
Okay,
Okay.
so
That's
Rob,
correct.
are you good with,
Yeah,
So
so we're
Andrew
gonna,
will
so we're
tweak
gonna
that.
bring it back to, I'm gonna play with the language a little bit, what we talked about, and we'll bring it to I'll bring it to the admins and get their feedback, and then bring it back here.
And I would also encourage them, if possible, to ask the folks that are working, like, in the hallways and in, like, I think your principals are so good, and I think they do this genuinely, but like, I would like some buy-in for consistent enforcement. And so if the people that are working in the hallways are like, absolutely not, I'm never talking to a student about having their phone out, like, I think we need to consider that. I'm just saying, like,
Okay, just so you know, like, I hear where you're getting at, but you just opened up a pretty complex situation, like, the people in the hallways are like, there's no.
teachers.
Yeah,
So ask the teachers what they think of the
okay,
policy.
all of them?
I don't know, however the principals wanna get feedback from their staff.
Okay,
I would bring it to a team meeting, like that's what, like if somebody asked me my opinion, I would bring it to some of my team members and say, hey, this is what they think about, do you have any feedback on that? I don't know what that looks like in
Okay.
your all's world, but I was just saying, like, it's one thing to have the highest level administrator say, yeah, this is cool, and then it's another thing to get feedback from the people
I
actually
agree.
doing it, that's all.
every single teacher, Rob, I want them
No,
on the show.
I, listen, I like clarity, you know,
Yeah, no, I
like-
understand that.
I like
I'm not
because-
expecting every single person in this
Yeah.
district to weigh in on it, but like, I think, I want it to be, if we're gonna write it, let's make it so that it's actually real. I don't want, like immediately when the buildings get it, them being like, oh, we're not doing that. That's what
No,
I'm
I get
worried,
it.
that's what
I
I'm
get
worried
it.
about. Cause then it diminishes every policy we've ever written ever. I'm just saying.
That's a little, I don't know about that.
Rules are rules, Rob.
Rules are rules, rules are rules.
Okay. So, Erin, you're taking over shortly, so I'll leave the next one up to you.
Was not prepared for that, hold on. I have like 40 tabs open. Okay, what would you, hold on, I gotta get back to your main folder.
My preference would be the appeals policy, unless Chaz thinks that he can make substantial progress on the AI policy.
So, I have more questions
Okay.
for, about the AI policy, to be honest, which is probably the wrong thing. I shouldn't be having all these questions, but honestly, I think we need to, maybe it actually would be better if we don't, because I think it actually might be more complicated than we can do probably in like 30 minutes, if you're still planning for 7.
Yes.
Yeah, or we're definitely
Yes.
ending at
Yeah.
7.
I'm open to it, but
Is it
would
something
be-
that would be productive to email? Like, are the questions like ones that you could have folks look and think about and then come back at our next meeting? Because I do think the AI one for me was so wild because it's such an unknown territory that like giving people some time to think about them might.
Yeah,
help?
I have recommendations, maybe I can make,
Alright.
I can do that, I have recommendations.
I defer to Jen
do
though on
it.
how she wants to.
Yeah,
If-
that's
if
good.
that's
Can you
fine.
do that? Yeah.
Yes, because none of this is like a,
Time.
yeah, and honestly, I think an email would be fine.
Okay.
I can get those out and send it to everybody
And then
here.
we
I
can
don't know
talk
who's
about it next
on.
one.
Are
fully,
you,
I can
you're
pull
on
it from
the
the list.
email, you're on the email from the last
Or just send it to
agenda
Jen
that
and
I
she
sent.
can
Or you can
distribute
send
it
it
for
to me
you.
and I'll send it. But
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Well, I'll
perfect.
do that.
Okay.
So then, with that one,
I would say either surveys or appeals. Pick your preference.
I feel like appeals.
I will say Ken was in doing work on appeals, so,
So that one.
yeah.
Okay. All right, so if everyone goes to the folder that is appeal process, it looks like the most up-to-date one is Redline J II, and it was edited at 6:25.
Mind you, I didn't look at the work that he was doing, but let's take a look.
So this is a existing policy that we revised in 2023, so fairly recently. But it's on the agenda because,
Because we wanted to, initially, we brought it back because we wanted to add something that would allow for a parent to bring an appeal to the school committee if they had not received any response from the superintendent's office. Right now, there was no,
and really any level, like
Any
it wasn't
level,
just that level,
right.
like if they appealed to the principal and the principal just never got back to them, the way that it was written is that they couldn't bring it to the superintendent either. Like it
Correct.
wasn't just that, it was any level,
to
you
move
could just
it
stall it
forward.
in theory.
Right, no
Not that
response.
not that our
basi-
admins do
right,
that,
no
but-
response basically meant that
Yep.
you couldn't move it forward. And so we wanted to define that if you had not received a response within X amount of days, you could move it forward to the next level. And then once we started going through it, we realized that we could probably make it sound more collaborative than punitive. And so that was what we had worked on the last time we saw this back in December.
Okay, and so right now it looks like we have, so we reviewed it in December 2025, and then it looks like there's some red line information, and so maybe we should just go top down? Okay, so, and again, this is for like appeals, so this is basically the school, any of our policies that we have at the district level, we people basically have like a process to go through as far as like, if you have a conversation with the teacher, you and the teacher have a disagreement, then it goes to the building administrators. If you have something that can't get resolved between the student and the building administrator, then it goes to the assistant superintendent, whoever the next one is there. If it can't get resolved there, then it can come to the school committee, and the school committee will hear it and then make a decision. And then there's actually an appeal process above the school committee where you can actually appeal things to RIDE. And then it gets even wilder from there, but just for the purposes of this story. And so, thinking about the purpose of this, or what Dr. Duvat, is the red, Ken?
No, the red is you from December.
Really?
Welcome to your life, yes.
Okay, great. So, past me wrote, apparently, are you sure?
100%.
That's wild. Okay, so the purpose of this policy is to outline what that is in theory. I'm going to say it in like lay terms, and then we can see if it translates or what people's thoughts are. To establish a process for that, with the eyes on just fairness and transparency to students, in our goal of educating them here in the district. And so what we had written was, the purpose of this policy is to establish a fair, consistent, and transparent appeal process for the review of decisions when concerns cannot be resolved at earlier levels. This policy outlines the appropriate chain of
Karen,
command.
I'm just gonna interrupt you,
Yep.
because you apparently don't remember that we went through this whole policy, since you don't remember that you wrote that.
I missed a meeting.
No.
I don't know if I was at the one where you all talked about this one.
100%.
No, I was at the first one.
No, well, we didn't talk about it again because we got snowy out. So
Oh.
you wrote this. We went through the whole.
What do you
thing,
want us to talk about?
And then, and then it's coming back to us now because we added some language about the prohibition against retaliation, and just we added the language about when the school committee meetings were.
That would have been helpful.
I'm sorry. I just assumed.
So what I'm confused about, I guess, is all these comments.
I added a comment today, which might be,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, so Ken has a comment. So Laura, so for example, on December 22nd, Laura had a comment that was just about the making it organized. That one we can resolve because you're gonna do that for all of our policies. Okay, I can go away. Then the next one, under policy statement, there was a recommendation. Did you all talk about this
No,
recommendation?
that's from today.
That's from today. Okay, so should we start there then?
Yep.
Great, okay, I'm with you now. So Laura, do you wanna talk about
Yes,
your
I'm so
comment?
sorry, I put it on the wrong version, so I just added it
It's
a
okay.
few seconds ago to this one. So we talked at the last time about the difficulty, because our principals are so engaged, with identifying the difference between a back and forth discussion about an issue versus something they need to treat as an appeal. And so my suggestion, and what I'm familiar with from a lot of our instructions at work, is an applicability paragraph that says, something like, you don't want to require magic language because a lot of people won't even know that this policy exists, but that you either have to cite the policy or use words clearly to the effect of, this is a formal thing that I want a formal resolution on, to make sure that everyone knows that they're taking it out of an informal back and forth and processing it in accordance with this. And there's two situations that I think it's important for. One is the principal that gets blindsided because they think they're having a back and forth with a parent, and then 7 days later the parent submitting something to their boss saying they didn't respond in writing in a timely manner. And also parents or students or whoever recharacterizing something that was a casual back and forth as a gotcha at some level. And we're not writing a policy like this for the go along, get along, cool-headed, reflecting parents. We're writing this for in the heat of battle, right? To make sure that everyone's clear, and that, so I think that's important, that we, in some way, identify what comes under this policy.
Like basically when does the, how do they?
Right,
how
what
does the-
triggers the need for a written response within 7 days?
Some kind of a
And I
final
think that-
determination, I think is what I hear you saying. So in other words, if we're going back and forth, should have been an A, it was an A minus, should have been an A, an A minus. It's not fair to the principal to all of a sudden have an appeal. I think there's gotta be some
Correct,
final,
yes.
like, in other words, and I don't know how we implement that, but it's gotta be, here, my final decision is you get an A minus. And now, okay, I've got your final decision, I can either accept it or move up the chain.
Or absent the principal saying final decision, the parent saying something like,
Yeah,
I
and
have that
that's the
in writing.
difficulty,
like, I haven't heard from you,
Yep.
I'm like,
You know,
what is the magic
I need an
word,
answer
right?
to the question. I would like it to be an A. You're saying, I need an answer, because if your answer is A minus, I'm going to exercise my right to go further.
And you know what, that reminds me of something I didn't add in this one, but I had in the comment that I can't find now, is that I would also be in favor, since this has to be in writing, is that when you escalate, you have to include the prior writing and the responses. Or that's gonna be part of the process in doing this, because I really, it would be unfair, thinking about how I feel as a principal, if someone jumped to my boss, the superintendent, you know, saying a bunch of stuff that they allegedly told me that just isn't in the writing. Like, I think you should show, how does the superintendent know when something comes to them if the 7 days has expired and all that? We shouldn't put that burden on the superintendent to do. That should be the onus on the person submitting the complaint. Be organized and submit it. And if you didn't submit it, maybe we say, hey, please submit all the stuff. But it shouldn't be up to the administration to be collecting and investigating, I don't think.
So when you file the appeal, like, include the 6 emails I sent to Rob that they
Exactly.
ignored, right?
Like, you have to
I know
complete
you wouldn't, but-
we would call it a record of the complaint.
Right,
I know
yeah.
nobody knows what that means, but something to the, and I'm not advocating for magic words or magic procedures, but it shouldn't become someone's job at the school to be preparing a case for this parent. The parent should have to submit their correct.
What I'm hearing is that the onus should be on the person doing the appeal
Yes.
to produce the
Correct.
evidence.
Yes, yes.
So,
To include that they have complied with it, which means that they had necessarily submitted stuff in writing at the
Correct.
other steps, yeah. And gotten a response
Correct.
that would be in writing that they
Mhm.
could provide.
so I think the question is, so there's some language here that says, did you propose something? There was another so I'm looking at that sentence, it's under policy statement, it's the second paragraph down, it says if any point prior to level 4, a written response is not received within 7 school days, the appeal will be considered denied at that level, and the student or parent or guardian may file a written appeal at the next level. That's
Yes.
the red language.
Yes.
But then there's a comment, Laura, that you had to the right of that says, a failure of the, and then you put in parentheses, principal to provide a written response within 7 days operates as a denial, could be appended to the end of level 1, 2, and 3 individually.
Yeah, that's an old comment that would
Yep.
be in the alternative. So, I mean, yeah, they're addressing the same issue. My comment is
Yep.
addressing the same issue as there.
But so is that, but what I was hearing you today say is that within this same paragraph, we need to indicate like that it needs to be clear that a final decision is being requested or that a final decision has been granted. So to Andrew's example, we're going back and forth. I think my student should have gotten an A. Nope, it's an A minus, A minus, A. If the parent or guardian is getting frustrated at that point, they'd like to say, is this your final decision to the principal, or something with those words and then, or like, I see what you're saying, I just don't know how to write it.
Yeah, and this is not, I wrote down just from my own notes here, you know, any appeal needs to include some evidence of a final determination. Because I don't know, I don't think you can require a parent, you have to say A, B, and C in order to trigger this, because they're not gonna know, but at least that gives the appealing person the ability to say, I don't see a final determination here, like in other words, you're going back and forth, but if you didn't respond or you get a final determination, then you can appeal, and you would have to, include all the accompanying.
I think the question though, Andrew, is you're going back and forth with the teacher, right?
Mhm.
And then the teacher gets busy and they don't write you back for 7 days.
Mhm.
But like there's no final decision, and then it goes to the principal, and then the teacher's like, whoa, I never made a final decision on this. Like, how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to me, that's where you have a conversation about the 7 days. I mean, I'm thinking, like, as a teacher, I completely get that, and I mean, I lose emails for days all the time. But with that said, I think as a parent, if it's an important issue to me and I haven't heard anything for 7, 10, 50, I mean, you know, the old, I have one kid, you're teaching 30, I understand you're busy, but this is this is really critical to me for whatever reason. I mean, I think you have to have something in there, right, so that if it gets lost, I don't, and it's gonna be hard to codify all this, I think for sure, but I think you have to have something where if I just don't get a response, I need to move this forward. Maybe it's a college issue, you know what I mean? Maybe it's, I have no idea, but
Maybe something like any appeal must include either, whatever you said, like the final decision or repeated attempts to
yeah, and
resolve
that's
the
why I thought
issue?
maybe the days thing, and although I agree, maybe 7 days isn't enough, I guess I
Rob,
just,
what were you gonna say?
Well, I'm just curious about is this any decision? Is there any are there any specific are there any criteria that have to that fall under appealable decisions, or is this literally any decision?
We talked about this
You should look at
before.
your lawyer on that one.
I mean, the way this is written.
I think in the rules in Ride Land, anything is appealable, right?
Well, the rules in Ride Land, and this is gonna go to another comment that was raised about, yep. Basically, the rule, what Ride says is any final decision of a school committee can be appealed.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we use that language. There are instances where Ride would say, you know, I'm gonna bypass the school committee, but almost invariably, like if a parent files a complaint that hasn't been to the school committee yet, my first response to them is, you know what I mean, this isn't right for a hearing yet, it hasn't been heard by the school committee, and then they'll usually tell the parent, hey, look, you gotta, you know, cross your T's and dot your I's.
We can only hear policy appeals,
Well,
correct?
and again, it does depend a little, this is like a catch-all, but they're, like, special ed things obviously wouldn't go to the school committee. Some other things, but a lot of things you do,
I'm talking
and this
about,
opens up everything.
I'm talking about that's what I'm.
I don't think
that's
that's
my
the
concern.
goal. No,
Yeah,
Well,
no,
it
that's
seems
why
that
I-
might not be the goal, but that might be what happens, because this is my concern is that this could open up any disagreement that happens over anything that somebody disagrees with about what a teacher does you know, that could be now subject to this if somebody wants to, you know?
This is
Again,
only
the
for
AA
stuff
minus
that
thing is
ultimately
legitimate,
comes
like
to
that's
the
something that
school
could
committee.
happen. What's that?
This is only for stuff that ultimately comes to, like,
Well, what would come to the school
but
committee?
grading things are under a policy, so that could come to the school committee.
If it's subject to the grading policy being violated, yes.
Correct.
So
But not if it's like, I disagree with the teacher's grade.
No,
being-
that was just Andrew's
But
example.
let me
Okay,
read
but that's,
the,
we
let me
need
read
to-
the first sentence in the
So-
policy statement. The following appeals process will be used when students or parents/guardians are seeking resolutions to differences.
Wait, where are you?
Yeah, that could be
That's a
anything.
little broad.
Yeah, like we gotta narrow that down.
What sentence are
That's
you
the
on?
first sentence in
That's the-
policy statement.
That was the thing I was looking at, I was like, well, what?
This is
Huh?
why I was reading
Like-
it to them, Jen.
Like that was my thing that,
Yeah, we
right?
should probably.
I didn't write that sentence was here already.
No, I'm not,
You-
I'm not.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
we
just trying to
no,
answer
I'm
Bob's
saying
question.
that's
That
in
was,
the
that
current
was my thing, like,
I'm saying that's
I'm
in the
looking
current
at,
policy.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
should
want my
narrow that
locker where it
down,
was
yeah.
assigned,
Yeah.
I don't want, like, you know?
That's in the current policy though,
What?
that language. That's not new. It's
That's,
not
oh,
red.
that was the existing
Yeah, that's the
policy,
existing
yeah.
language.
Whoa.
We can change
That's-
it.
Yeah,
Concern.
we should clarify that, cause
Yeah.
it should,
Just saying,
yeah.
grow over.
What's an example of something that does
concerning.
not, that, give me an example that's not in a policy, that would be disputable.
Oh.
Well,
Oh,
so,
I need one for my brain.
let me put it this way, special education, right, I'm sure you have policies, we don't discriminate against special
Yeah.
ed, blah, blah, but in theory, a special ed decision,
Sorry,
once
but
made
yeah.
by the district, does not come to the school
Yeah,
committee
yeah,
at
yeah.
all.
I wasn't
So
thinking
that
about
would be
that.
exempt.
Yep.
Okay, so I want this teacher, not that teacher. Okay, so, but is there a policy? I'm just trying to think of
I'm trying to,
like-
let me pull up the Rhode
So we
Island
can put that, we
general
can
laws.
work that language in then. We can put something about like if you believe a policy has been violated, something like that. A school committee policy has been violated. I will note that. Okay. Andrew, is there a separate policy that exists for special education stuff, or should we reference
So-
that?
No. Here's, say again?
So the thing about like if your disputes regarding special education don't come to school committee.
I mean,
they
you
go
could
straight to
certainly put
Ryan.
that in there, I think that's
Yeah.
pretty well established, but not everyone understands that. I mean,
I'm a
I-
special ed kid, I don't know that.
Nobody knows that.
yeah.
Okay, we'll note it, we'll note it.
So here's the two statutes, just to make this even murkier, right? Parties having any matter of dispute.
Wait, we should reference the statutes.
Yeah, that I can do.
I'm gonna
Parties
put this
having
further
any
here.
matter of dispute between them arising under any law relating to schools or education may appeal to the Commissioner of Education.
Parties say that, having any?
Having any matter of dispute between them arising under any law relating to
Okay,
education,
any law.
right? So that, and then appeals from school committee decisions, any person aggrieved by any decision or doings of any school committee or in any other matter arising under, so this is really kind of a catch-all.
Right,
Yeah,
but it's
can
saying it
appeal.
has to be within the bounds of some kind of like legal.
Well, yeah, you can't appeal, you know,
But this doesn't,
well, that's where you get into the policy discussion, right? So that's a law, you guys have created policies, if you're arguing that, or if there's a law that says, you know, the transportation, you know, you were entitled to safe transportation. Well, we have a policy that says this is what we deem to be safe transportation, but a parent can appeal that,
yeah.
because they're going under the law saying they don't believe it's safe.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
understandable. If the parent has a concern about the safety of the child's transportation, that would be, I'd be worthy of it. You know,
Yeah.
I wanna make sure we're,
I mean, look, I can give you some examples of things that I've seen that aren't great, is, you know,
Where are the
like,
weeds?
So-
Come back out.
I have a question about that though, like, so the transportation piece. So if we look at the purpose and you look at the levels, it sounds like the chain of command, so starting at your school and then moving up. So if there's an issue with transportation that is a district-wide piece, like if I had an issue with transportation for one of my kids, then I would contact the school principal first, and then if I
I
didn't
think it says the
get-
director of transportation on the website.
Okay. I'm just, if I look at this policy, it makes it seem that any student or parent goes to the building principal,
Touche.
level one.
So-
So, I'm just
But I-
trying to figure out, like, if that's the broad, like, as a parent, like, where do I start? Like, if it's an issue with a teacher, like, if there's a policy issue in the school, then I'm gonna go to the principal, but if it's a policy issue or something that's district-wide, then I think there's gotta be some delineating, and I think the
I
chain
think
of command
we
breaks down a
tried
little
to do
bit.
that in the policy statement where we said this appeal is of a general nature and any
Okay.
policy-specific appeals would follow the structure of that policy. So I
Got
think
it.
probably what you have, and I'm guessing here, but in a transportation policy, it may very well say, if you have a problem with your child's bus stop, you bring it to the director of transportation.
I think
So-
what he's specifically referencing though, and correct me if I'm wrong, is under level 1, we specifically reference building principal, and in some cases, it is likely the first stop in level 1 is not the building principal.
But-
Shabali doesn't wanna hear
Right.
about the bus stop issue, like, that's director
But
of
what it says
transportation.
before that is
Yeah.
this policy,
Yeah.
this appeal policy is general. If there's a specific appeal policy that's different in a specific policy, that's what you follow. So in other words, if you have an issue with transportation, and we have a transportation policy that says this is the appeal process, that's what you would follow, you would not follow this. This is a catch-all, and it's not, it's Rob's concern. This is sort of a policy that says, if you have no other recourse anywhere else over whatever the decision may be, this is how you appeal it.
Yeah, I do think though, from like a normal person perspective that don't understand things, I'm pissed, I want to appeal this decision, right? And so I Google North Kingstown School Department appeal, and this policy pops up. And then I see level 1, write an appeal to the principal. I think we should probably change that language to be a little bit more inclusive, or it goes to the principal, and then the principal can, if it's something with transportation, they would forward it to
See,
Michelle.
that's
or
how I would see
something.
it working,
Yeah.
like, I would say, if I'm the principal and a parent calls me about transportation, I would think most of our principals would say, hey, listen,
Yeah.
what you're looking at is a general policy, here's the policy that deals with transportation, you wanna go this route.
Yeah, as a principal, you would receive whatever the concern was, you would read the concern, get a sense of what was going on, and then, what's the first most appropriate person to access with regard to whatever the issue is.
So, for the transportation one, that's separate, and I haven't looked at the transportation one because I wasn't on this committee when it was there, but do most of our policies, if it's at the district level, have that? And then my follow-up question is it possible as part of this to create just like a single page document, and it says, like, we have a list of all the policies that we have, like policy, and then like first line appeal, like this is your contact, so that parents, like if I do, like you said, like I do a look and this is what comes up, Appendix 1 or Appendix A has a list, like transportation, I'm gonna contact this person. If it is this, like I don't know, that's a lot of work, but as
I
a
don't know
parent
what it is,
that.
because those might be the only examples. Like, I'm trying to think, so what I just noted, here, we're not gonna solve it right this second, so what I noted for Jen, because she's not here, so we can assign her things, is I wrote, example, where do things like transportation go? And I put it on that level 1 policy that says principal. And then I wrote, are there different policies that these are friends with? Like, are there other, for lack of a better word, like flow charts or like chain of command charts that other policies are referencing? Transportation might be an example of that, and I wonder if there are any others. I can't think of any others, but there could be,
Title
maybe.
IX.
Title IX might be one, yeah.
Discrimination,
Yep, okay, I'll note that. Okay, so we'll take a look at that, and then I do think we should reference them in here at minimum, and then we should make a decision as a group if we wanna change the language of level 1 once we kind of see the scope, because if it's just 2, then I think you reference those 2 and say like, concerns with transportation or Title IX, like, refer to these policies for process, and then it can continue, or if it's like 10, we'll figure it out. Jen will figure it out.
So the other one would be like school placement, that would be, there's a transition, there's a,
Yep,
that's in there. I'm looking at the transportation policy right here, and it does say that if there's a, cause students have to ride on a bus other than their assigned bus or disembark at a location other than their assigned stop, parent guardian must provide in writing a reason to request of the transportation supervisor.
yeah, there's definitely a couple things that like it goes to the transportation
Yeah.
supervisor, if they deny it, then it would go through this
Right.
process and it would never hit the principal. There are some exceptions like that,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and like, I guess what I'm trying to gather from this is like, because we have done these processes for different policies that are written.
Yeah.
School assignment's one of them,
Yeah.
transportation. For this one, what I'm getting is that we're talking about just general disagreement with a decision, right? And so, I just would, I guess, kind of be curious about how that actually how that actually applies. You know what I mean? Is it something where we're just disagreeing with a decision on a personal
No,
level,
they
or are we
think a
disagreeing with
policy
a?
has been violated.
Okay, then I think we just
Yeah.
need to specify if we
Yeah.
think a
Yeah,
policy.
I mean,
That would be
no,
helpful,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's,
all
I
right.
think it's, if you believe
Alright.
a North Kingstown School Department policy has been violated in a situation, the first step is you reach out to the principal and say, or like, I think it was like after you've tried to resolve it with the lowest person, then that, your first step is there, then it goes here, then it goes there, whatever. So I made that note so we can work in that language about like, if you believe a policy has been violated.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Good.
Other, let's see, where are we? I mean, I think going back to like, I know Jen said we looked at it December, but I don't know if we were well on December 22nd. I most certainly clearly was not, because it was 3 days before the holiday that I celebrate, but here we are. So the purpose of the policy is to establish, so the reason why we have this policy is we want fair, consistent, and a transparent appeal process for the rule of decision. So we don't want people who know the game to be able to appeal things and people who don't understand to not. Like, we at least want to be really clear about this is how you do that if you are upset, because I think one thing that I've noticed over the past 3 years being on the school committee is that some people, like, they take it for face value. They're just like, oh, well, like, they said no, so, like, I'm really still upset, I really still think my student is being wrong, but, like, they said no, and I'll be like, no, well, you can appeal that, and they'll be like, what? And I'm like, oh, goodness gracious, okay. And a lot of things get resolved. This is, like, a small percentage of things that happen. The schools do a nice job working with families and students. So it's just like those ones that, like, you want them to know that they have rights and that they can appeal, I think. So it talks about, again, the chain of command I think is important in this policy because helping people understand that piece as well. And then ensures that matters are reviewed at the appropriate level. So that was another reason this policy is important, because people were skipping levels immensely. You know, they go right to the school committee chair, right to the superintendent. And so trying to be able to point them back to, no, actually you need to follow this process. So that's kind of the purpose of it. Does that make sense? Ish, yeah. But we'll make sure we add in that piece about, somewhere about the things.
It makes sense. I'm curious, and I'm not saying this from a sense of, I guess my question is, having a policy, right, conveys the expectation that the policy is being followed, right? If a policy is not being followed, or in the eyes of a person, a policy is not being followed, and I understand your point, Erin, about the transparency and the piece around that, so I think that makes more sense to me. I also know that regardless of this policy, if a person felt that a policy was being violated, there would be an avenue for them to pursue an appeal process, right? But this provides more specificity, I think, is what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, and I also think a lot of people, as somebody who's like lived in education for 20 years, of course there's an appeal process, but like for people, when you're like, you have a kindergarten or a first grader and you don't know the game, like you don't know.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, they still won't find this policy, but at least there's something.
Well, they could be referred to it, like.
Yeah, you can, yeah, exactly. Like,
Right.
well, and I do that a lot, right? So I refer people to this policy all the time because they'll email me and I'll be like, oh, that's very nice. I will see you in 4 months after you've worked through all of these different people. No, like not for time-sensitive things, obviously it goes faster, but I do really believe at trying to resolve things at the lowest level. And then if they can't though, then, and it is a difference of opinion on if the policy had been violated or not. That's when it comes to the school committee. So then the philosophy, so does anyone have any feedback on that purpose part? Are we cool with the purpose part? Do we think that makes sense? That first paragraph? Other than Andrew's gonna add the statutes in here, because there are statutes. Because even if we didn't wanna do this, we have to allow them to appeal. We are legally bound to it, just like our cell phones.
Does the word chain of command, is that, I mean, from a military standpoint, like, I get that, like, I don't know, does that translate over to everybody, or is that gonna be like, is there another way to say that,
Maybe
like?
we could define that. I actually line of authority. leadership hierarchy, organizational hierarchy, any of those vibes? Students, what do you think? What would make, what would make most sense for like, there, you can, this is the process of who you talk to, like structurally. That's what we're trying to figure out. Does that make sense? First you go to the principal, then you go to the superintendent, then you go to the school committee. How would you say that if you were explaining it to a friend?
I guess I would say like the order you,
The order you go in?
yeah.
Okay.
You're escalating.
The order of
Progression.
escalation or order?
Steps of escalation,
I don't like that escalation.
Yeah.
I just associate it with a different thing, but.
That's regional.
How
Chain-
do-
chain of command makes
Chain of
sense, but I
command.
also
But,
like, I
yeah.
don't know, like,
Do
I've
you
only
know
been
what
in
chain of
military
command means?
circles, so it makes
So I'm
sense.
not in military circles, but we live in Kingstown. I feel like next to the seaports.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of. I mean, but I might be biased by our geographic location.
It's definitely,
I like
I
chain of
Googled
command.
it because I was really deep. I think I probably said this to you all. I was looking up the origin of chain
Oh,
of
yes.
command, and remember
Yeah.
I was really deep in my
Obvious.
history brain, and it turns out it's not evil. But it's 100% military, but it was like the way that they said, like that most people understand that. But I do think just a simple, how do you
Just say appropriate leadership.
Supervisory chain?
like order you go into resolve is what we're trying to
Sounds
say.
very like corporate, yeah, that
The
works.
proper sequence for resolving the issue, the steps for addressing the concern. I liked resolve because it's a proactive versus a, like positive words versus negative words versus saying like appropriate process for resolution. Anybody like any of these? No?
Gamify it, level 1 mini boss.
I just feel like as a parent, whenever
Love
there's
it.
anything that happens, the first person I go to is the teacher, and the second person I go to is the principal. Normally it doesn't go past that. But I feel like this is really important to cover those people as well, right? So really, in my view, as a parent, we're not really writing this for the parents, because I think most parents wouldn't actually whip out their laptop and be like, wait, hold on, let me find this, this particular policy. I think it's more so that to protect the principal from getting a lot of unnecessary arguments about, what could be in the grander scope of things seem trivial, but to that parent is a really big deal. And to kind of help them find the appropriate person in which to contact. And I've seen this happen at the elementary, where like, well, did you speak to the teacher about it? Well, why don't you start by speaking to the teacher about it? And then, the teacher will contact me if I need to inject myself in some particular way. So I feel like just to kind of keep in mind when we're choosing different verbiage for things like chain of command is that chances are probably pretty strong that a parent understands what chain of command means. And I don't think we need to dig too deeply into that parent that's looking at this policy.
Okay. I put a note for Jen saying alternative language, proper sequence of resolving. She can do whatever she wants with it. So it seems like we think chain of command is pretty common knowledge, but I think it's a good question to ask. And ultimately, no one's reading it anyway, so great. No. Okay, so then philosophy. Our philosophy is that kind of concept of we want it to be fair, we want it to be consistent, we encourage people to resolve it at the lowest appropriate level, and that we promote open communication, mutual respect, and timely resolution. That would be the goal. If differences cannot be resolved, we affirm the rights of individuals to seek resolution at a different level. And again, it's probably a little bit wordy here, but it says again, consistency, transparency, due process, and that they, and like that timeliness piece. So I think we need to tighten that philosophy up a little bit. It was wordy, but does anybody have any thoughts on like things that might need to be in there or things that you think shouldn't be in there?
In philosophy,
Yeah,
I think it reads pretty well.
I think it just needs to be too many words.
Yeah, maybe, but I think what's in there is good.
Like the vibe is good.
I think so.
And then for the policy statement, that seemed fine. And then we got to the part that Laura was talking about earlier where it says,
Well, policy statement we have to include there about something having to do with in violation of policy.
Yeah, I have it in the
Yeah, in the
notes.
cafeteria.
I
Okay,
didn't,
alright,
in the
alright.
comments, I just didn't wanna wordsmith it right
Got
this
it, got
second.
it. Okay.
I can only do that when Jen's running the conversation. I can't type and talk
Yeah,
at the same
it's all
time.
good.
But so I'll deal with that. I'll write it in the top, that part there. This process may be entitled, so it says this process may be entered into the appropriate level, in accord with the nature of the disagreement, and then it said, someone, and I don't think I wrote this because I never highlighted in yellow, it says, add something about skipping if the issue relates to the person at that level. So I think we, in this discussion, had talked about, like if the person that you think violated the policy, like if it's not, that you could go to the next level. So like if, like I don't know what, that came from somewhere, I think that came from conversation though, and I don't quite know the answer.
Well, if you have a complaint about the superintendent, you shouldn't take that to the principal.
Probably not.
And you probably, in some cases, you should take it to the superintendent, but in some cases, you might wanna ask, depending on the subject matter. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just words to the effect of,
I'll put maybe,
you enter in,
Yeah, and then you
like I
follow
think the
up.
goal was,
yeah.
if something happened and they were so upset that they were not able to talk to the person that did that violation, that doesn't mean that they can't do anything. Because we're encouraging the lowest level, but like we don't, I think, want people to not report because they are not comfortable talking to the person they need to report.
I feel
I don't
like
know how to write that in
I
policy.
feel like that could lead us back into that skipping steps of like, and then not being notified. So if I was a teacher or a principal and then all of a sudden, like, I'm getting emails or getting concerns from somebody above me that I don't even know that this is an issue, like I think there's a fine, like I
You
think there should be I think there should be notification, like if you have an issue, you have to notify. I think that 7 days, like if you notify and it hasn't been resolved, then you move forward, but I think if you skip above, then you risk somebody not knowing what's going on and then having a teacher or a principal or the superintendent blindsided.
Yeah, maybe something that even talks about, like, if whoever the person is reserves the right to send this back to the prior level if the person wasn't consulted, because I think what you're talking about maybe is a situation where, let's just say, you know, a teacher says something to a student and the student is really upset about that. You don't wanna say to the student, well, too bad, you gotta go talk to the teacher about this before you do that, but, so maybe it just, but also a fail-safe, it's like, well, it was a grade, well, then you need to go talk to
Thanks,
the teacher
everyone.
and try and straighten this out and work through it, and, you know what I mean? I kinda give like that next level, the ability to say, you know what, that makes sense, I understand why you don't wanna talk to the person, we'll go up here, we'll start here, as opposed to, you really need to go back down and talk to, I'm just kinda
Right.
throwing it out there, cause I see
I like
both
that.
situations.
That makes sense.
Alright, so what we'll do for this policy is, cause we definitely wanna, this isn't one we wanna spend 6 months on, like that's not the energy, cause it's already been written, and so, I'll go through, or myself or Jen will go through and we'll just like make it, tighten it up so we have a new draft, and then I'll have Jen send it to folks, and then if you can just take a look at it and see if there's any other concerns. But again, I think try to really look at it through that lens of, we want people to understand there's a process, we want the process to be consistent, but we're honestly not trying to change the current process. We're like, the way that it kind of works now is, it's not that we're trying to fix what we're doing, it's more we're just trying to be transparent and clear about like what that process is, I think, with this policy. So we'll take another look at it at our next meeting and hopefully we'll be able to move it along, because it's only like one more page, there's one more page after what we were just talking about, it's not wildly long, so. And if other people have any other thoughts about, like, as a student, what you would need to see in this, like, that's really important, because like in theory, a student should be able to read, understand, and execute anything in our policies, cause they're for you, and so definitely take a look at that and be like, hey, if I handed this to my friend, would they know what to do? Or like, same with parents and supporters and teachers and all the right people, so, cool. So our next meeting is,
23rd, I think.
it's probably soon, yeah, because we got, this one still was delayed. And so let me just confirm that for anyone.
23rd.
March 23rd, yep, at 5 o'clock. Why is there a weird thing? Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so we'll see everyone then, and thank you so much. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Oh, Chaz is here, I don't have to turn it off. Rob told me I had to, but you're here. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you.